function, faith, transformation, sex, junk food, and reality television, just to name a few. And it is generating major buzz from the likes of Vanity Fair, NPR, and Slate. And Vogue has even called it the Fight Club for women, which is pretty badass. We think it's the voice of the future, Alexandra, and we are so excited to have you here today. It's a pleasure to
Thank you so
chat
much
with you.
for having me. Yeah, and thanks for the great review you guys did. It was
Oh yeah,
the
special
smartest one.
thanks on BookTrib. Yeah, to Rebecca Foster. She also wrote a review on BookTrib, which we absolutely loved. So before we dive into the questions, can you tell us a little more about You Too Can Have a Body Like Mine?
Yeah, so You Too Can Have a Body Like Mine is my first novel. I've had it in mind for maybe 5 years, and I spent the last three writing it. Um,
Wow.
it's the book that I always wanted to write, and it's about a person who falls out of their life into a sort of cult that
Hmm.
embodies both escape from capitalism, but also just a different version of capitalism. So
Great.
it has TV commercials, it has grocery stores, weird products, some interesting and strange characters who come along, and it's a little difficult to describe, but I'm happy to describe in more detail if anyone wants.
Yeah, absolutely. And the title of the book, when I first saw it, I thought that sounds so familiar, like, but it was familiar but strange at the same time. It was very unique. I was like, is this a Jane Fonda like title of a tape from like my mom's collection or something? Where did you hear it somewhere? How did you come up with the title?
Well, that title is actually from the old advertising campaign for Charles Atlas's bodybuilding videos.
That's
So
amazing.
I used to read those in the back of my dad's comic books when I was a kid, and it was this huge, muscly man, small head, like gigantic, shiny body, and below his flexing arms, it said, "You too can have a body like mine." And as a little kid, I would look at this and I would go, "Oh my God, is that possible? Like, even me." Like if he promises it, it must be true, right? So
Right.
it's that sort of idea that I think is at the heart of the book. This like hopeful and super optimistic idea of self-transformation that is
Hmm.
also a little bit terrifying and self-alienating.
Yeah, and surreal at the same time. I can't imagine you as a young child seeing that picture. It sounds terrifying.
Yeah, Google
Um,
image search that. It's there.
That's awesome. One of my favorite scenes is kind of towards the beginning with the ants and the two girls are eating popsicles on the roof, and the ants are kind of like consuming the orange juices from the popsicle and kind of like consuming and dying at the same time. So, as a writer myself, and just being an English major, I was always like toting around a symbols book, like dictionary of symbols. When you're writing, do you kind of always toy with the symbolism behind something, or are you just kind of like you write down a random scene and then it kind of takes on new meaning as you continue to get further into your writing?
Yeah, I don't know how it is for you, but I feel like if I go into writing a scene with an idea of the symbolism, it's going to end up
Yeah,
sort of flat. It's going to be like nothing
exactly.
more than what I can think of from the start, which is like something
Exactly.
that also will be totally under my control,
Hmm.
not a surprise.
Hmm.
So I like to let the scene come to me first, and then as I'm writing it, you start going back and over the things you've written and thinking like, oh, what else should I add to this scene? How should I change
Hmm.
the description? Should it be more blue? Should it be more lonely? And then like as you sort of sculpt or carve away into it, then you get something that has symbolism sort of naturally in it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
It
Um, it's
emerges.
more authentic that way, I think, definitely. So your main characters are referred to as A, B, and C. Why did you choose to do this instead of full out names?
Right. Well, on the one hand, I've always had trouble making up what I think are convincing full names.
Mm-hmm.
I I would sit there and go like, Rachel, no, that's not right. Or I know a Rachel, and she wasn't like this
Mm-hmm.
character. Got to think of a new one.
Right.
But in this book, like, I was able to give names to a lot of the peripheral characters, like people you hardly ever meet. But I thought it was important that my three main characters have these lettered designations because um,
Mm-hmm.
there are few enough of them that you can really keep them in mind by these designations,
Yeah.
but also it puts them into this arrangement, like the alphabet is so close together. It's this little cluster of people whose positions are distinct, but always sort of in danger of getting mixed up. Like one little slip
Yeah.
or the removal of one element, and then you could have sort of a whole new order. And that's what A worries about for a lot of the book, that if something happens to her, you know, who's going to take her boyfriend, maybe her best friend.
Yep. B and C are right next to each other, exactly.
Yeah.
So the characters are glued to their TV sets for a lot of the story, and they're watching this crazy commercial for a product, Candy Cakes, which is amazing. The descriptions of those commercials are great. And also beauty ads, and they play this game called Channel Seek, which the things they do are so strange, but then you think back like, wow, I've kind of done some of these weird things with my girlfriends, like play weird games with the TV. So it's also relatable at the same time. So why is television such a prominent part of the book?
Well, television is such a huge part, I think, because sort of where I grew up in Colorado, it still is a huge part of life. Like my parents come home from work, they're both teachers, and they turn on the TV, kind of, and what happens in their night is kind of what happens on TV, which I think is a really interesting way to live and an interesting way to see the world. Um, and I've also been fascinated with, like, when you have a TV in your house, anything can enter your room through it. You know, you don't have that much control over what you see or what it wants to show you. So it's like this very ordinary thing that's also a portal into the strange rest of the world, you know. And I feel like I've moved into apartments with roommates who have TVs, and just the way that the TV exerts gravity on their whole relationship is something that I think is super interesting and interesting to depict.
Yeah. And Candy Cat is the mascot for Candy Cakes. What does Candy Cat represent exactly?
Candy Cat is, just to start off by describing him a little bit, he's a cartoon cat who is the mascot for Candy Cakes, a snack cake. And he is totally obsessed with eating candy cakes, and he's never ever able to get a bite of one. So he's sort of like the Trix Rabbit, if you remember that from childhood, or Wile E. Coyote, always chasing the Roadrunner and never really getting the Roadrunner in his sight. So I wanted to use Candy Cat as this character who's completely not like our narrator in almost every way. He's, for example, not real. He's an animal. He's in a strange cartoon world, but he's somebody going through something that she can relate to on a really personal level, even before she understands that she's relating to him. So she is able to project her feelings of dissatisfaction onto him. She's able to understand that she's missing something from her life by watching him, even though he's in a different but analogous situation to her.
And and the character A has incredible reactions to a lot of the detailed beauty ads on TV. Did you kind of like take note of the beauty ads as you were writing this? Did you kind of do your research and just pull from your own, viewing?
I definitely did some research, but also I feel like I'm totally in that world. Like I'm on Sephora's mailing list, and I'm on Base NK's mailing list, and I don't know, some other things I never signed up for. And so like every day I'm getting some kind of new product that somebody thinks will do something good for me. So I feel like whether I want to or not, I'm aware of all of the different ways this stuff is marketed and directed towards me.
And I think it's interesting that I'm 29, so like a lot of the candy cakes reminds me of like cartoons and different like cereal commercials from when I was a kid. I'm sure you too. And I'm thinking also of just like beauty ads from like when our parents were teenagers. What's kind of the difference that you've noticed between like 1950s and 60s beauty ads and the ones of today?
Oh yeah, I think it's so different. I
Hmm.
remember, well, in those days, like there was Elizabeth Arden day cream or something, day cream and night cream. You just put that on, and it would help your beauty, not in a super
Yeah.
specific way, but it was good for you.
Yeah.
And now, I don't feel like anyone uses an all-purpose beauty cream at all. Everyone is like looking for some sort of problem they have and some sort of cream that's designed specifically to fix it. And maybe a cream that's designed to fix two or three of their problems and not really deal with the others, right?
Target
So
your problem areas.
your problem areas, yeah, like everything's so targeted now that
Hmm.
you look at your body, you look at your face, and you're thinking like, oh, what do I need to work on next? Instead of
Hmm.
just thinking like, oh, I look good today, I look tired today, I look,
Yeah.
it really, in some ways, causes the face to become like a bunch of little separate floating islands.
Yeah. I saw something on the news about like these new like plastic things that you put on different sections of your face instead of like putting cream on. It's like this.
Oh,
Google it.
oh,
It's
I've
really
never
weird.
heard of that. Do
Yeah,
you
it's
think,
like different
would you
sections,
try
different colors for. I don't
it?
know. I feel like that would be really obnoxious. Like I like putting a face mask on. Like I feel like that's a
Uh-huh.
relaxing thing that I like to do like once a week, but that feels like it would be cumbersome just like hanging off your face.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows? You never
This would
know.
feel
You never
heavy. There's
know.
no way for that not to.
Yeah, it's weird. I guess it just whatever's on it, your skin absorbs. Speaking of weird beauty rituals, what's one of the weirdest beauty rituals that you've ever kind of heard of people doing,
Heard of people doing, man.
or you do, or
Oh,
either
I,
one?
well, I think I have on my Chinese side of the family, I have an aunt who is not my aunt, but she's one of my mom's best friends. So I've
Hmm.
called her an aunt all my life. And she really believes in this thing that is like buying actual pearls, and grinding them herself to make something that
Wow.
she can exfoliate with. And she's done this for decades and decades, and
Oh
she'll
wow.
do it for decades and decades more, you know.
That's better than
But
like
I
the
think that,
artificial. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
well, at least you know what's in there, right? But you
Yeah.
have to take a little bit of extra time
It
and energy
takes
to
some
make
extra
it
time.
happen.
So, also you mentioned like you're on the Sephora list. What are some of your own buying tendencies and like obsessions with beauty products? So there's a lot about like the weirdness of buying and the process of buying things in the book, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah, I I was talking about this with a friend. We were talking about how like you always have to consume something, but you get to decide what kind of person you are by what you consume. So with beauty products, you can be like the technologically savvy, a Silicon Valley cream user like Algist or something, or you can go the hand milled like plants and herbs route from someone
Hmm.
who might be like a witch or a healer or an aura reader
Yeah.
in California. And I tend to go for things that like say that they have vitamins in them. Like I like things with
Hmm.
vitamin C. I feel like those work and they make sense to me because I know that I
Yeah.
feel that I have them in my diet. But
Yeah,
that doesn't
absolutely.
necessarily mean they work on skin, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so now I'm getting into suburbia and suburban life, which is another interesting part of the book. And the main character, A, says that her town is pretty boring at one point. She says it to her
Mm.
boyfriend, C. Although there's a lot of bizarre occurrences in her town, and I mean, I come from a small town, and I'd say it's pretty boring, but there have been weird, random things happening there. So, does this say something about how people in society kind of turn a blind eye to just something that's happening right underfoot?
Right. Well, I feel like in literature, right, the suburbs have been this place that are um, like they were the subject of lots of novels, like revolutionary road
Hmm.
and things about unhappiness in the suburbs, like how these places are so
Yeah.
normal and so boring that they kill your soul, right? And
Yeah.
after we all accepted that the suburbs were boring, then people sort of stopped writing about them. there's so
Yeah,
many more Brooklyn novels than suburban novels now.
I know, right?
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I thought though that growing up in a semi-suburb, we were a hippie town, and I lived sort of on the edge of it in a place that was very normal, very strip mall-y. Um,
Yeah.
there's a strangeness to living in a place that's supposed to be normal, and there are these differences between the places, and a surprising amount of commonality, like from one city to another. Like all across the country, you
Mm-hmm.
can find two cities that have roughly the same like restaurants you
Yeah.
could eat at and places you could go. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
all kind of a weird chain of suburbia across America.
yeah.
Absolutely.
When
Um,
I yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, when I was younger, I was in a band that went on tour, and we broke down in a
Oh yeah, I remember
country
reading that.
in a city in Alabama, yeah, that I had never been to
Yeah.
before. And um, it was an extremely stressful time. Like all of us in the band were really mad at each other, but we were able to go to a comfort inn that was exactly like the comfort inn I had been to like a couple years before
Oh
with like
wow.
family on vacation. And it was so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how else to say it, but comforting. To be
Mm-hmm.
in a place where everything was where you expected, and that's the
Yeah.
secret pleasure of suburbia, I think. It's like
Mm-hmm.
home distributed all over the country.
Definitely. You can get sick of it, but it's always kind of comforting to go back. Absolutely. Another part that I really liked, A says at one point that a woman's body is never really hers to begin with, like kind of starting at birth and then through her life. Um, is this the same for a man? I thought that was a really great quote.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't know as much about the male experience, right? But I think that there are definitely some things that we go through that make us think of our body much more as shared property than
Exactly.
as, yeah, as
Hmm.
something all our own. And whether it's because men don't have to confront it that much, or because the situation really is totally different for them, um,
Hmm.
I'd stand by that. Like, um, yeah, not only do we have that cool paradoxical experience that I have not gone through, but will someday go through, I think, where you create a life inside of you, and it's inside of you, and then it's outside of you, all while,
Hmm.
you know, um, you get to live for a while as one person who's two people, and this
Yes.
must totally affect the
Sharing
way
your
you view that
womb.
person. Sharing your room, yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. um, but besides that, I think like we're much more conditioned to look at ourselves and think about how other people are looking at us, and to internalize their opinions about what we are, I guess.
Yeah.
So that makes being female, I think, more of a porous and more of a kind of public thing.
Yeah. And you kind of learn to, you have to sacrifice and give more if you know, have a child as well.
Yeah.
Um, I pretty intense. There's a lot of themes of like vanishing and like ghosting is a term that I really liked. And just like, losing one's identity and kind of like not knowing where you start and where you begin,
Yeah.
where you start and where you end rather. Can you talk a little bit more about those themes
Yeah.
throughout the book?
I mean, I've always been fascinated by disappearances. In Japanese
Mm-hmm.
literature, which I read a lot growing up, there's a lot of missing
Uh-huh.
persons novels and stories.
Mm-hmm.
But the way I felt about it growing up in America is also sort of related to the suburbs. Like, I'm fascinated by chain stores and how, like, if you go on their website, you can see where every single one is, and you can
Mm-hmm.
even see online or call them and find out exactly what they have in stock, and someone knows where
Yeah.
everything is all the time. So it seems like very safe, and like everything is accounted for. But
Mm-hmm.
things can still go missing within that system, and I'm always like
Yeah.
fascinated by how that happens. Like, did someone make a mistake, or are there like blind spots built into it somehow?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's it's interesting to me whenever something looks very functional and very clean and well working on the outside, but inside there's still spaces for like the old disorder to sneak in.
Pause within. Yeah. Um, One of my favorite quotes in the book is when B says, borrowing brings you closer to other people, but while buying mostly makes her feel lonelier. So
Yeah.
what does it say about her character?
What does it say
When,
about her character that she feels that way? Um,
yeah, like how is she different from A too? Because I'm not sure, she feels
Totally.
exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think A values her own independence a lot, which is part of why
Mhm.
she's so vulnerable to um, an infringement upon her identity by her roommate.
Right.
If she were easier going about it, I think that she and B could just keep on living together. B would resemble her a little bit more, but if she didn't care, it wouldn't be a problem. And
Hmm.
her life would go on in the same path, right? But
Hmm.
because she's not, like she's a consumer in the classic sense. Like she sees something and makes sense to her,
Yeah.
she'll buy it. And when you buy something, you take it out of the store, you take it back to your own house, and you're alone with it, essentially. Like the
Hmm.
people that you were with when you were at the store, whose company maybe you enjoyed, like are gone. Um, and then B has this more, in some ways, like she has the attitude that would help A become more connected to her world. Like she needs people. She really
Hmm.
needs people. She wants to need them, and she expresses how much she needs different things from them.
Right.
So when you borrow something from someone, you bind yourself to them. You have an obligation to them in the future. They have an obligation to you. Suddenly they're sort of taking care of
Yeah.
you, and that means they'll probably take care of
Hmm.
you in times to come. Um, but even though like B is, in some ways the weaker character, and in some ways the one who's threatening A's life, threatening her position in her
Exactly.
own life. She also has a solution that A could use if she could see it for binding
Hmm.
herself more closely to the world and getting connected to the things around her. Yeah, and it's just A
Yeah.
can't even see that happening.
Yeah. B is like reminding me of a roommate I had that would always take my jewelry.
Yes.
Can I borrow it? Okay.
Would
So
she
I can
ask
slowly
or would
think.
she just take it?
She asked and asked and asked, and then she'd just be like, it was the same, actually, it was the same necklace every time. And I was just like, that's like kind of yours now, so just take it. Like, you're allowed now.
It's so
Yeah, so
funny. It's
funny.
so funny how that happens. Yeah.
Yep. So what authors are you currently into? Who are you reading right now?
Um, I've had a really great summer of reading. I don't know what
Awesome.
it is, but I feel like everything I've picked up has been such a hit for me.
Hmm.
I read all the Elena Ferrante novels this summer, and they're
Oh,
such
awesome.
intelligent beach reads. It's like you want
That's
to
the
read them as
best.
fast as possible, but they're also so smart, and you really get to know
Hmm.
the characters.
Hmm.
I loved Merritt Tierce's Love Me Back. Um, that one's sort of, it doesn't have as much plot, but it's about life working in the high class dining
Yeah.
business, yes, and
Oh,
sort of the volatility of that and all the things you don't see behind the scenes.
interesting.
And I also loved, let's see, I was reading Diane Cook's short story collection, Man versus Nature, and those are all brilliant, surreal, like from another world short stories.
Hmm.
I just, it's like you finish it and you're like, oh my God, Google when her next one is coming out.
Yeah, exactly. Um, how about like stuff that you've written in the past? I know you've written for Paris Review and Guernica and stuff like that. What types of writing was that? With short stories? What other things have you worked on?
Well, I wrote short stories for Paris Review and
Hmm.
Zoetrope and Guernica. And those are coming out in a collection that's out next year,
Wow,
probably around
awesome.
Halloween 2016. Yeah. Um,
Exciting.
yeah, I'm excited for those, and I'm working on writing a couple more for the collection that are they're all dealing with one character at different points in her life, so that she can sort of remember in one story something that happened to her a couple stories back. but as the reader,
Hmm.
you see she's not really remembering it correctly.
Yeah.
She's spinning it even without knowing to fit the situation. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and I've also been working on doing some more reporting. So um, so far I've been out to a fruit festival where people go to practice an all fruit and vegetable diet. It's like all raw, mostly fruit, some vegetables like celery and leafy greens, and no like seasoning, like no salt or pepper or anything. Um, but they really believe in the health of that diet. And it was pretty interesting. It was not good for me by the end of it, but for a while I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like being a whole different person.
Oh,
So,
wow. In a good
yeah.
way or an angry way?
In
You're
a
like, oh, I
good
can't do
way. I think like suddenly you're on this summer campgrounds, right? And you're meeting all these people who are so happy because they're only eating fruit and that's what they wanted to do and they're doing it. Um,
this.
uh, I know it's definitely not a way to live a normal life.
Yeah, it's cool though to do something like that. It's definitely it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Now in terms of just we've seen all the great reviews going up about the book. Do you have any like events, signings coming up, anything kind of in the hopper that we can
Yeah,
look forward to seeing?
I'm doing my Manhattan launch on September 9th with Rivka Galchen, who is amazing and so smart. Um,
Excellent.
and who also she wrote this really interesting article on earthquakes in Oklahoma and how they're
Oh,
having like 3 or 4 a day now, and it's definitely connected to fracking and mining in the area.
yeah.
Um, so
Hmm.
she can do anything, in my opinion. Um,
Oh, wow.
and then I'm traveling to Providence, Rhode Island, LA, San Francisco, Boulder, Colorado, and Austin in the fall. So if anyone's in any of those cities, I will
Yeah,
be
you
there
guys.
too.
And
So.
anyone, that's awesome. Anyone who's tuning in just now, we are talking about Alexandra's debut, You Too Can Have a Body Like Mine. Love the cover. It's just the colors are amazing. I was trying to like pick an outfit that matched, but it was laundry day, so it didn't work out the way I wanted it to. So you did mention you worked for the on the book for 3 years. It was like a MFA project, or was it before that?
Yeah, it was an MFA project. I I started a version a year before that, but it got lost and it's not
Hmm.
really in the final version at all. Um,
Gotcha.
I worked on it for probably a year and a half in the MFA program, and then a year and a half outside of it.
Hmm.
And it was really great. Like if anyone's in the MFA program and thinking about whether you could work on a novel in it, it's a little bit of a challenge. But if you have people with you for one semester, it's actually kind of nice to be able to give them chapters like each month or something and see how they react and how they react compared to the previous chapters. It's like you're writing to people in real time, which is a
Yeah,
really cool feeling. Yeah.
that's amazing. Did you have like a really great network of people there? Like what new relationships did you kind of forge during that time?
Well, we had a very big program. We had maybe 65
Yeah,
people in my year in fiction,
great.
right? But I
Hmm.
did find three amazing friends who are all very different. I don't really think that they're friends with each other. But they've been really great readers for my work because each one of them has something, like some way of seeing books that I don't see automatically. And, you spend time with them and hear their reactions, and I start to like store a little voice, like my friend Kimberly inside me going like, it always has to be clear. Every single scene you have, like, to be clear from the beginning what's going on. And I hear her voice when I write it, and I think,
That's awesome.
yes.
Like
Readability,
over your
clarity.
shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't
That's
know if I
great.
live in their heads, but they live in mine.
Have they published anything? Or are they like close to it? That must be crazy to see each other kind of like
Yeah.
live in the
Well,
dream.
the first people from my MFA program are coming out with their own books. Like Sarah
Hmm.
Novich's Girl of War that came out in May, and it's an amazing book.
Awesome.
And I'd say she's like the first one with us. Kevin McEnroe's Our Town, and then next year, two more of my friends have books coming out. But I think
Wow.
we're the first clump, like maybe people who didn't get a job directly after graduating, who did residencies or moved around, and
Right.
then after a couple of years, and I think we'll see another clump of people who, worked on their books while doing something else of value to
Yeah.
society.
That's fantastic. Good for you guys. So I have some rapid fire questions because we're almost at the end, but these are just some fun little quick rapid fires. So here we go. Candy cat or Chester Cheeto? Cheetah.
Candy cat.
Yeah.
He needs all the help he can
Uh,
get.
yeah, absolutely. Water or fire?
Oh, water. Definitely
Me
water.
too. Hmm.
Yeah. Pisces.
Yeah, I'm a Scorpio. Country or city?
Um, Depends on the city, so I'd say country because you're
Yeah,
safer there.
that's true. Guitar or drums?
Guitar,
Hmm.
drummers.
Lipstick or eyeliner?
Eyeliner. Eyeliner every day for me.
Yay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it was wonderful to talk with you, and we're so glad that you came
Yeah.
on to talk about You
Thank you
Too Can
so
Have a Body
much.
Like Mine.
I'm so
Yeah, it was
glad you had
amazing,
me.
and yeah,
Yeah, and
and we
actually,
just
oh,
here it is, guys.
there it is.
We wish you
Yeah.
continued success, and we can't wait to see some more reviews about it.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thanks for everything and have a
Thanks.
great weekend.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning
Bye.
in.